Good morning, friends, and happy Wednesday. Thank you for coming to another Fantasy Foundation video. My name is Caitlin Costello, and I am the YA fantasy author of the Ritual Saga. In today's video, we're going to be talking about world building. And world building can be very important to your world. Depending on the type of story you're writing, it could be the basis of everything where you need to start and figure everything out, or it's doing research and building off of it. If you're anything like me, when you get started writing a project, you usually have a few pictures and images in your mind of what your world looks like, or at least what some scenes look like. It could be a forest in a clearing, or a bedroom in a castle, or a path in the woods, but you don't have much connecting them together. And that's what world building is. The definition of world building is the process of constructing an imaginary place, sometimes an entire fictional universe. So, for example, the Shadowhunters is set in New York City and London and all those various places. Harry Potter is set in London and then has the separate fictional place. Lord of the Rings is a completely fictional universe. Throughout the course of this video, I'm going to be giving some of the tips and tricks that I use when looking into building my worlds. Step 1. What kind of world is it? This goes back to the last video and what I was just mentioning with genre. What kind of story are you telling? Are you telling an urban fantasy? Are you telling an epic fantasy? Like my two examples, those are going to have two very different worlds. Step 2 is to think about the technology and also the time period. Now, technically, these could be looked at as two separate things, but I think that they go hand in hand so closely that I think of them as one step. As far as technology, you need to start to think about like the little things. My main character's father is a baker. He's not going to have the same tools that they would have in the Great British Bake Off. He's going to have to do everything by hand. What is your primary building tool? Do they have cranes, or are they moving everything like on scales? If it's everything made of wood, it's made of stone. Do they have metalwork? That's going to affect the architecture, but it's also going to affect your weapons. For example, in my book series, there is no automated weapons of any kind. There's no crossbows, there's obviously no guns, and while it hasn't reached it yet, at this point, there is no scorpions or catapults or anything like that. Simply bows and arrows, swords, spears, pikes, things like that. And those are the kind of things that you want to establish early on, because if 90% of your story is like in the American Civil War in like the 1860s, and then all of a sudden someone's got nukes and automated weapons from like today's time, you're not going to have a happy audience. They're going to be thrown out, they're going to be confused. So you have to make sure everything is as consistent. Obviously that's a very dramatic response, but you get the idea. You wouldn't want something to be used that's out of the timeline. Step 3 is thinking about culture and what brings your people together, but also what divides them. So, do you have a form of religion? Is there certain holidays that they always celebrate? What is their schooling like? Little things that may not actually come up in the story, but that you know and are able to implement when they come up. Which leads us into step 4, which is the history of your world. Why are things happening now? Why are things exploding now versus 5 years ago versus 10 years ago? This has to build into your conflict and how everything builds together. People are going to remember past events and why they're affecting now. This will create differences in your people and all sorts of things. So it's good to have that history knowledge in your back pocket, but also remember, life isn't logical. If you look at today's history, nothing is black and white, nothing fits together perfectly like a puzzle piece. So if some things are missing or twisted, make it be the legends and the lore have changed it over time so that nothing quite fits, but there's enough grains of truth to make it believable. If your history does come up, make it be enjoyable, which sounds harsh and like obvious, but you don't want your reader to be sitting through a history lecture. You may find it interesting, but you need to make it interesting for your reader, because not everybody likes to sit through a history lecture. And my final step for today, step 5, is to zoom in on the little details. It all kind of brings it back together when you think about your 5 senses and what you're seeing around you in your world. For example, if you go on a walk outside, you're going to notice the breeze and how it's cold. You might notice the scent it's carrying, which is going to reflect what is around you. It's going to affect what you think about what you're wearing. Is the coat you're wearing light enough? Or too light? Is it too heavy? Those little details will really bring it together for your reader. But you also need to be careful with all things of making sure it's balanced and you're not overloading your reader with details. But you don't want to make it too sparse that your reader can't put themselves into the story. So every scene or so, make sure that you are, if not directly hitting all 5, you're hitting at least 2 of the 5 senses, which are sight, touch, smell, hearing, and taste. I think I said all of them and I didn't repeat any, but those are your 5 senses. And you really want to make sure that you have a few of those every so often so your reader can really get in the story. That is all that I have for you today, and I hope you have enjoyed it. If you did, give it a big thumbs up so that I know, and make sure you're subscribed so that you know when I post more. Please hit the little bell icon so that you are notified when these new videos are up. Leave a comment down below with a book that you read that had really cool world building that you think everyone should read. Alright, all of my social media links will be down below, and I will see you in